Hello and welcome to the Brodie Blueprint, the podcast designed to help college students and young professionals navigate their career paths. Each episode we sit down with industry experts from finance, business, sports, education and more to uncover their journeys, daily experiences and lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're exploring career options, looking for networking advice, or just curious about different industries, this is the place for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hi everybody, welcome back to episode 7 of the Brodie Blueprint. Today I am joined by Strategic Enrollment Management Consultant Christy Mathews out of California. Christy, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, the pleasure's all mine. Obviously you've got a lot of experience, especially around students, which is exciting for me and exciting for us, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say for us today.
Thank you, I'm excited to be here.
Good stuff. So let's just jump in. Obviously, now you've studied at a few schools, picked up a lot of information from being in college. Tell us a little bit about your time in college, things you wanted to do in college, what you thought your career goals might be, and any kind of other things you picked up in your time at school.
Definitely so much to cover there. I'm going to go back to my childhood and share a memory with my mom that stuck with me and influenced a great deal of my early life in college and career. She shared with me that from her earliest memory that she wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And that's what she became. And she loved her career and she just had that singular sense of purpose throughout her life. And I was never that person. And I remember being concerned as the years went by, why am I not figuring out what I want to be when I grow up? You know, a doctor or a writer, and I had all these different ideas, many of which were planted in my head by other people. And by the time it was time to go to college, I still didn't have it figured out. I became a performance major when I first started college, and then quickly realized I would never be a concert pianist, nor did I want to teach. And so what on earth was I doing? So in my junior year, I switched to an English literature major so that I could go on an Oxford University study abroad semester. Very, very practical. Now that ended up being one of the best experiences and one of the most formative experiences of my life. So no regrets there. But changing your major in your junior year, not the best decision, generally speaking.
I just did that as well. I feel your pain. I just did that. I know the feeling.
Yeah. So I was a little lost, not quite sure where I was going to land. I was an excellent student and I gave all my classes 100%. In many cases, I burned myself out with all the effort I was putting into school, but I still didn't have a really clear direction of where I wanted to go. After graduating, which I did manage to do that in 4 years, because of, again, that treadmill approach, I had several job offers. I decided to take one with my alma mater, working as an academic administrator. And in that particular role that involves admissions, academic advising, faculty support, event planning, a whole host of responsibilities. And I was there for 8 years. And I wasn't convinced that was my career path for several of those years. And then one day I woke up and realized I love this. I love helping students. I love advising students. I love seeing them achieve their goals and their dreams. And that's where I ended up settling in higher education. But it was a very circuitous route getting there.
What was your time like studying abroad? Were you just there for one semester, did you say?
Yes, I was there for Michaelmas term, as that was a fall to winter term. Nice. And I was studying English literature. I took a Shakespeare tutorial, a C.S. Lewis tutorial. I was a huge fan. And then medieval and Renaissance literature. And the term involved going to London multiple times, seeing Shakespeare plays. Really hard to take.
Right, amazing. No, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So moving in, obviously now you have a PhD now. Congratulations. It's obviously a very impressive thing to see after anybody's name. What was it like getting your PhD?
It was challenging. I started in 2018 and concluded just last May 2024. And you expect a PhD to be challenging, so that's an understatement. I did mine part-time alongside working full-time and having a family and multiple hobbies. Uh, Again, I haven't quite shed that habit of overcommitting and the treadmill lifestyle. Um, but yeah, I plugged along doing 1 to 2 courses at a time.
Mhm.
Around about a year and a half after my son was born, I took 1 year off from the program to address health concerns
Okay.
and then returned and completed. For my
Amazing.
dissertation, I spent about a year on my
Wow.
dissertation, and that went pretty quickly. And I was
Amazing.
focused on what I wanted to do, and I liked my topic. It was in enrollment management and
Brilliant.
a qualitative study focusing on the lived experiences of female chief enrollment management officers at
Okay.
specific religiously affiliated nonprofit institutions, and it was
Okay.
just fun.
I bet.
So yeah, that was my doctoral experience.
Amazing. No, it sounds really interesting. It's yeah, definitely a lot of stories in there, I imagine. What
Oh,
was
so
what was
many.
what was networking like for you at college? Obviously, that's kind of what we're trying to stress on the podcast, young people getting a hang of networking.
Yes.
What was it like?
Yeah, so I feel really blessed with the network that I had in college, and
Mhm.
honestly, many of those connections are still connections today,
Okay.
uh, and friendships, really. So I think because I was a good student,
Yeah.
many of the faculty I interacted they liked me, they were willing to spend time with me.
Hmm.
And I leaned pretty hard into mentorship, asking for
Okay.
advice, asking for guidance, exploring career options with them. And so faculty were a really key part of my networking experience in
Amazing.
college. I
Hmm.
also met with several college administrators over that time. In
Okay.
some cases, it was for specific advising or career counseling. But then in other cases, it was just developing friendships with people in
Hmm.
different age groups and with different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And all of those connections have, in one way or another, contributed directly to my success in my career thus far.
Amazing.
I'm in touch with most of those people still.
Hmm.
We connect on LinkedIn. In some cases, we are best friends and we interact all the time.
Amazing.
And in a few cases, those connections have led directly to jobs.
Okay.
So, for example, I was the student editor of the Honors College's student journal.
Okay.
And I did that all 4 years
Wow.
at school. And that job led to a couple of the job opportunities I was offered after I graduated. And
Very cool.
those opportunities in turn led to promotional opportunities, recommendations that landed
Hmm.
me future jobs, and
Brilliant.
more.
Great. I want to touch on something you mentioned there. And a couple episodes before, we've spoken about the importance of having a mentor or various mentors throughout your career. Is there any kind of specific figures you can remember that really kind of touched your career and kind of gave you a passion in school?
There were so many people who were really influential in my
Hmm.
life, and not just in college, but recently. I always recommend that people pursue mentors.
Hmm.
Sometimes mentors come to you,
Yeah.
right? They're either organically in your community, like a faculty member
Yeah.
or a career counselor or someone, perhaps even a family member
Hmm.
or a friend. But in so many cases, particularly after graduating from college,
Yeah.
that those connections can be lost and be a little less obvious.
Hmm.
And so for myself, and I recommend to anyone listening,
Yeah.
is if you don't have a mentor, seek them out. So find people that you admire
Hmm.
and ask them. The worst they can say is, no, I don't
Yeah.
have the time right now, or I only have time to meet, once or twice in a
Hmm.
year.
Hmm.
Um, the best and most common answer is that they're flattered that you asked, and they're
Yeah.
very willing to devote time and invest themselves in the next generation of leaders.
Hmm.
And so that happened for me in college and beyond, and I'm so grateful for the mentors in my life. Um, did you want me to call out specific people? Because I'd
No,
be
no.
I'd be happy to.
It's up to you. We've had a couple people mention someone wanted to give a shout out to someone they've worked with. If there's people off the top of your head, please mention.
Yeah, so this particular mentor happened beyond a college. Her name is Dr. Jamie Brownlee Turgeon, and she currently works at Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego, California. She is one of my former bosses, and she is one of those leaders who consciously invested in her people. And she came into the institution that I was already serving in at a point where I really needed encouragement. I really needed someone to keep me going, because enrollment is a challenging industry. It can be, or a challenging job. It's very much a roller coaster. You have high highs and low lows, and you face a lot of rejection. And there can be a lot of limitations in career advancement that just need to be overcome. And she came in and she recognized my efforts and offered to invest in me. And we met regularly, and she was one of the people who influenced me to obtain a Ph.D. She was one of the people responsible for my progression into a director of admissions role, a dean of enrollment role in another university, and where I am today. She even served on my dissertation committee and has just been someone who's really actively invested in my life. So kudos to Jamie.
Right. Amazing. That's great to hear. I think everyone that spoke about a mentor figure, they really have had like huge impacts on their life. So I'm glad to hear that happened with you as well. One thing we always talk about networking in these episodes is how to start. If you're a young college kid and you're nervous, I know you said the worst they can say is no, I'm too busy. And I understand that it's not the end of the world if that's what they say. But a lot of people who are scared to have these conversations and scared to approach people in their careers, what would you say to those young people?
Yeah, so I think it depends on your particular gifts and talents. So, if you're someone who will get really nervous approaching someone in person, write an email. And I was one of those people. I felt bashful asking for things, especially as a college student and as a young professional. I wasn't secure in who I was yet, and I felt like I was intruding on someone's time if I approached them in person. So first, I recommend, if you can, develop a relationship with that person in some respect. You might be a student in their classroom, or you might be a student worker on the team they oversee. You may rub shoulders with them in a department. First, recommend try to establish some contact, excuse me. So if you could send an email and say, I love the work you're doing. Would you have time to meet me for coffee for 30 minutes? Set a really reasonable time frame that won't take up too much of their day. It could even be 15, even for a brief introduction, and let them know what you want to accomplish, even if it's just to pick their brain on a topic or learn more about their career path. People love talking about themselves, and even really, really busy executives are generally more than happy to do that as long as it's for a limited period of time. So if you're nervous, start with an email. And you may also use your current network to get to that person, depending on the situation, depending on how prominent that person is. Let's say you have a best friend who works for them or something. You can tap into that and facilitate an introduction.
Amazing, perfect. It's that easy. Just building relationships kind of outside of how you know them and finding an easy way to communicate. I mean, it sounds easy, huh?
Well, if I may add, part of why I think it is easy is because all of those people have been where you are before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unless they're particularly egotistical or have forgotten what it was like to be a college student or a young professional, they're going to be open. I would say 99% of these people are more than happy to give of their time, and they want to invest in the next generation. So, yes, I think the hardest thing to overcome is ourselves and
Yeah.
the blockers and the fears that we experience internally.
Exactly. No, that's really interesting, Christy. I completely agree with that. You also mentioned something at the start there of your sort of networking experience and journey about how you could feel like you're intruding on somebody's time, or maybe you're not of high enough standard to be, messaging them, asking them questions, perhaps. What would you say to young people who are going to be entering the workforce, maybe entering their first internship, who feel like that, who feel like they're maybe intruding, they're not supposed to be there, and they just feel uncomfortable about maybe getting started? What is there any advice to kind of feeling comfortable in new situations you have?
Hmm. Yes, I something that I've practiced and that has worked really well for me, and not just because it works, but because I
Okay.
think it's the right thing to do, is lean into your discomfort. We tend to shy away from our fears, from
Hmm.
any perception of potential suffering,
Hmm.
from putting ourselves out there, from the worries of being embarrassed and such.
Yeah.
Suffering is good for us, and challenges are good for us. Pain is not necessarily a bad thing.
Hmm.
And so allow yourself to feel that, to acknowledge that discomfort, that uh, maybe lack of belonging,
Hmm.
and be willing to initiate and make the first moves, make friends.
Yeah.
Um, Introduce yourself to people, see who responds. Not everyone is going to, and
Hmm.
not everyone has to like you.
Hmm.
You just need to find one person at
Yeah.
first,
That's
establish
what.
that friendship, that relationship, and
Yeah.
that will lead to more.
It's a lot of people have said, and just in conversations I've had outside of the podcast, it's the idea of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, isn't it? That's kind of the easiest way to get into those situations is just sort of to do it and overcome that feeling.
Yes.
So I think you covered that perfectly. I'd like to move on a little bit more, sort of roles you've had outside of college. I've got them all listed down, but they all seem to fall into the categories of administrating, enrollment, student services. So tell us a little bit about what you've done since you left school, things you liked about your career, things you wish maybe had turned out a little bit different, and obviously where you are now. I know you had some information about what you're doing just now as well.
Hmm. Yes. So I described my first 8 years
Yeah.
in higher education and how I sort of became an accidental higher ed professional, uh, realizing I loved it many years in. It really clicked for me when I moved. I relocated and took a job as an enrollment counselor. In many ways, that was multiple steps down from where I had been at my
Okay.
prior institution. And yet, that's where the magic happened. I loved that role. I loved the competition involved in enrollment, the challenge, the camaraderie
Hmm.
around benchmarks and metrics and goals. And there were some great people in that department with a lot of positive energy. And that's where I decided, okay, this is for me, and I'm going to stick with this probably for the rest of my life. And so I really love that role, quickly moved up into a management position,
Right.
uh, made friends in other departments, learned a lot about the other facets of student success in advising, in financial aid, the registrar, student
Yeah.
accounts, from faculty perspectives, and networked a lot there. And that
Hmm.
added a lot of richness to my experience.
Yeah.
Eventually, that led to a director of admissions job at another university. And then eventually, um, post pandemic, when I was home with my son for a time, that led to me being a part of starting a new higher education institution. And that's what I worked on until just recently. Now I am kind of venturing out into my own thing. I'm building a business. I'm going to be launching that this summer.
Brilliant.
And I'm going to be having a podcast, a weekly digital newsletter, and a
Amazing.
community centered around the front lines of admission. So coming
Wow.
soon.
Absolutely. It's exciting. No, that's really exciting. So tell us a little bit more about that. That sounds exciting to me anyway. I want to hear kind of all about it. So you want to build a community around, this kind of area of education and consulting. What's your goals for your company?
Yeah, so my primary goal is building community and resources
Okay.
and tools and direction
Okay.
for people on the front lines of admissions,
Okay.
K through 20 admissions. So what I've personally experienced in my role is that enrollment counselors, enrollment managers, admissions counselors, directors of admissions. These are the people who are doing the actual work of keeping higher education going.
Yeah.
They're the ones interacting with the students and the parents and the families. In many cases, they're also the ones building external partnerships with workforces, with churches, with entities outside of higher education that are absolutely needed to keep
Hmm.
it going.
Hmm.
And these people are largely silent. If you look around at the podcasts available now, there are amazing podcasts, and I'd like to give a particular shout out Up Experience.
Okay.
I absolutely love that podcast. Joe Slustio and his team are amazing.
Great.
And they are actually part of what inspired this idea for me.
Cool.
But the focus in many of the resources that are out there are on the executives, the presidents, the
Okay.
C-suite, deans, and above. And that makes perfect sense for those topics. But to I want to get in the thick of it with the people who are doing the front lines
Yeah.
work and hear from them about what makes the job tick for them. What do they do to move the needle for students and parents? What challenges are they facing?
Yeah.
What technologies are supporting them or
Mhm.
not supporting them? What are some of their wish list items for things that they think would transform their work?
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this,
Amazing. Yeah.
and I already have a few people lined up, and I
Perfect.
just need to start recording the episodes. So,
Amazing. So coming summer 2025, huh?
yes.
Great stuff. No, it'll be good. I think we should try and get you back on after and see how you're doing. I mean, it's really exciting
Oh,
stuff, Christy, I have to say.
thank you. Yes, I'll record in.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So obviously it's funny because you talk about you're trying to help out people on the front lines of student enrollment and student services. I mean, this is what you did for the vast majority of your career. What things did you like about your job? What didn't you like about your job?
Yes.
What are the front lines of student services for you?
Yes. So ultimately, it always comes down to people for me.
Hmm.
A really wise enrollment manager told me people than numbers. And if you treat people right, the numbers will come. And the reason he shared that with me is because enrollment management, of course, is about meeting enrollment goals
Yeah.
that colleges and universities must have in order to be financially viable. So at the end of
Okay.
the day, it is a business.
Yeah.
Institutions generally need enrollment to survive. There are
Hmm.
exceptions, of course, but most of them need specific goals met at specific times
Yeah.
in order to move on. So it's really easy to get caught up in I'm two enrollments behind, and what do I do? And maybe I should compromise the way I share about education in order to get those enrollments,
Yeah.
or maybe I should give up. Or there's so many challenges
Hmm.
that enrollment counselors and enrollment managers go through in those moments. And he was bringing me back to what I think is the heart of enrollment management,
Hmm.
and that is people.
Yeah.
If you focus on the student, if you help them, if you really listen to them actively and help them identify if they're a good fit for the school, if you share about the institution truthfully, accurately, thoroughly, you can help make that connection and determine if it's a good fit for the student. And then you offer customer service. And I put an emphasis on customer. A lot of people don't like the idea of student as customer.
Yeah.
It is uncomfortable and balance is needed there. But
Hmm.
there are so many options nowadays. If students don't like what they're experiencing over here, they can always go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you treat the student well throughout the process and treat them as you would want to be treated if you were
Hmm.
a prospective student at that
Hmm.
institution. Good things are going to happen. They may not always enroll, but I experienced that some students that chose not to enroll with me came back years later
Wow.
and said, hey, actually, I did finish my undergraduate degree over here, but I wanted to come back to your school for a graduate degree because I've never felt more cared for.
Oh, wow.
I knew you guys were different
Mhm,
because of my experience with you.
mhm,
Or in a couple cases, I started at this other school and realized that I had fallen for a hard sell. I want to go back to the people who are actually invested in me.
yeah,
And so that investing in students and actually bringing genuine care
mhm,
to people who are exploring this huge investment of time and money. I love that aspect of the job. The
amazing.
other people aspect I love is working with teams.
Mm,
There's nothing more satisfying to me than seeing someone come in who maybe has never been an admissions counselor before, or uh, perhaps they had a bad experience at another
mhm,
institution and they're wondering if they have what it takes to succeed, and
yeah,
helping mentor them and guide them and build them up professionally to help them achieve their goals.
amazing.
Just the camaraderie around that, the sharing of success is
Mm,
just a really sweet thing, and I love that. And then also there are just so many amazing people in
mhm,
higher education, the people in enrollment, the faculty, the many incredible administrators and people in a wide variety of departments. It's a community of people who are largely dedicated to student success, who are generally sacrificial people. They could probably make much more
yeah,
money elsewhere, but they choose to be there
yeah,
because they want to invest in the future of
absolutely.
education and in the future success of leaders.
That's great. I think
So that's something I love.
the way you put that is you're really shining the light on the side of student services that we don't see as students, that students don't see. We might meet you guys on a tour or speak to you guys over email, but we really don't see how passionate you guys can be about ensuring that we're taken care of and looked after. So I think that's a side that's nice to see, and I'm sure it will be nice to see when you start your own company and you've got other guests on as well. I'm sure they're going to share some great experiences as well. Was there ever anything you thought was a con of your job? Was there anything maybe you disliked a little bit more?
Yes. Well, there are a couple things that come to mind. One
Okay.
is in the institutions that I served in, we were often technologically under-resourced.
Okay.
And oh my goodness, does that really make the job a
Yeah.
challenge. So in some cases, I was working with homemade CRM systems
Wow.
that had very manual processes.
Mhm.
And in some cases, actually in two cases, we had botched CRM implementations during very high volume application times that
Okay.
just it took our jobs from 40-hour a week jobs to 60 or 70-hour a week jobs.
Gosh. Mhm.
And we were all dedicated enough to make it happen,
Mhm.
but it was an experience. Both of those experiences led to a lot of burnout and discouragement on the teams. And
I
I
can
think
imagine.
today, especially as we have all these wonderful AI technologies at our
Yeah. Mhm.
disposal,
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of debate around those, and certainly we need to be thoughtful in our
Mhm.
implementations. But there are some amazing tools out there that save an incredible amount of time without uh, stepping over any ethical boundaries
Okay.
that could transform higher education.
Amazing.
And higher ed is very tentative around those technologies, and so
I
that's
bet.
one of the things I want to do to help them move forward. So yeah, botched technology implementations,
Yeah.
uh, technology that was behind the times really made the job difficult in several
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
instances. And then also going back to people,
Yep.
micromanaging leaders or absentee leaders.
Okay.
There's one in particular that I think would be helpful for your audience
Yeah.
to hear about.
Please.
I had a boss give me a bad performance review sort of out of the blue. We had
Okay.
been working together for a while. I knew that we disagreed about some things, but I had never received negative feedback
Mhm.
from them before.
Yeah.
And when it came time for my performance review, I was floored by the feedback.
I
And
bet.
the question that was posed to me at the end
Yeah.
of the review was, are you sure you're meant to work in higher education? You
Gosh.
seem you seem to be struggling and to lack joy in your work. Now, behind the
Oh.
scenes, I was absolutely struggling. I was a new mom. The pandemic started. I was working 70 plus hours per week and I wasn't sleeping. And so, yeah, I was
Gosh.
struggling, but I was
Yeah.
still bringing heart and soul and everything I could possibly to the job. And I was receiving positive feedback from other leaders. And so this really threw me. And it caused me at the time to doubt. I really internalized that question. Am I meant to work in higher education? Have I been wrong this whole time? And then this person added, maybe you should go home and focus on being a wife and mother. There's nothing wrong with
Okay.
focusing on being a wife and mother. But
Yeah.
I told them, no. Yes, of course I love my family, but
Yeah.
I feel a vocational calling to higher education. No, I love this. I don't want to leave.
Mhm.
But even so, that question festered in me for a long time. It even eventually led me to resigning that job
Wow.
and going through a period of struggle and questions. And I emerged from that, thankfully, with a thicker skin and realizing that other people may not recognize your vocational calling, and they don't have to. They might not know you well enough. They might not have the insight to see it. And that doesn't matter. If you are passionate about something and if you know that you're meant to be in a place, don't let the naysayers get you down. Don't let those questions bother you. If it's from a wise counselor who's really involved in your life, who's demonstrated support for you and it's constructive critique, great,
Yeah.
take it. But if it's like the questions that I received, active ignore, move on.
I mean, yeah, so it definitely sounds like a difficult manager to deal with. But like you said, you came out of it, thicker skin and better. So good in the long
Yes.
run, I suppose. But I can definitely see how that would be maybe an awkward month or so. Before we look to wrap up, Christy, there's something you touched on earlier I want to bring back up. You talked about working in teams and how much you like that in higher education. You also mentioned being able to be a mentor to other workers. What was it like seeing the mentorship relationship, but from that side, but as the mentor?
It's so enriching, honestly, and something that I've practiced since becoming an enrollment manager over, gosh, that was almost a decade ago. It's hard to believe. But something that I've practiced really intentionally is always having a mentee.
Okay.
And because not just because I think I could add value to
Mhm.
someone else's career path, but also because in that relationship, there's mutual learning and
Yeah.
support that takes place. And it has, it just is a privilege to have the opportunity to be there for someone.
Mhm.
Sometimes a mentee just needs you to sit there and listen
Yeah.
and be a sounding board. Other times they're completely lost and they need you to speak into a particular area. Um, there have been times when mentees have come to me expecting that I have some magical answer for something. And I have to say, actually, I'm struggling with the same thing. This is a
Yeah.
challenge that's going to be there throughout your career. There isn't a magic wand for this. There is no single answer for this. It's something that you have to lean into and explore for yourself. And those moments of mutual learning and relationship building are just invaluable. And at the end of the day, so much more so than any salary. I encourage anyone listening to, like, obviously we have to pay our bills,
Yeah.
but if you find a really great group of people to work with, there's no amount of money that can replace that. And if you have mentors in your life and you are investing in other people and you're giving back in that way, and you have a good thing going there, keep it if you can. That's going to be that's just going to be a really enriching thing that can go beyond any material gain.
Brilliant, absolutely amazing, Christy. You've given us a lot of advice, and you've given us a lot of wisdom, and I'm sure throughout your career it sounds like you've touched people with that as well. I'm going to call for you now in our last segment your 2 and 3 top tips for young professionals starting out just now.
2 or 3 top tips. I'm going to go back to people again. Because no matter what industry you land in, no matter what career you pursue, people are always going to be the most important. And sometimes an employee's or a team's well-being might be at odds with other company goals and such. And so I challenge anyone who is in management or leadership to give all that is in your power to taking care of your people and to really being an advocate for them, even if that puts you under the microscope with executive management. I believe that if you're investing in people and serving people and having that attitude of servant leadership, that only good things will come out of it, even if that job is not for you. That attitude and that approach with people is one of the best ways to network. People don't forget that type of investment, that sincere investment, and they will either follow you or make sure you have other opportunities in the future. So yeah, focus on the people. They're the most important. Jobs come and go. People and relationships remain.
Absolutely.
And secondly, don't quit on a hard day. And that is easy to do. Like you may be persevering for a long time in a job, and if something happens and you just want to say, that's it, I'm done. If you can, don't quit on the hard day. And this is something that Angela Duckworth talks a lot about in her book, Grit. If you can, get your hands on that book, read it as soon as possible. There are so many amazing life lessons in there. But if you can persevere through the hard days, move through your emotions about whatever is going on, get to a steadier, more objective place, and then make your decision, you will be so much more pleased, both with yourself and with the results that you see in your work.
Amazing.
So those are my top two pieces.
Amazing.
I could probably come up with many more.
That's absolutely amazing. Christy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been absolutely brilliant speaking with you today.
Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciated this time and had a great time with you.
Absolutely. Guys, new episodes every Wednesday and Sunday. Check us out, Brodie Blueprint on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks again, guys.
Well, that's all for today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and were also able to gain some valuable insight into a potential career. Please head over to Instagram and TikTok and follow us. That's the Brodie Blueprint. And also don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube as well. If you guys have any guests that you want to see on the podcast or any industries that you want to see guests appear from, please let us know. Until next time, guys. See you later.